You know, I remember we recorded that little intro with my air guitar.
All right, our rock band.
Our rock
right?
band.
I wish I could have been there for that.
Yeah, me too. Well, we welcome you to Two Black Dads. I am Tyson Bell, one of said black dads, and
I am Keith Luke. I am the other black dad, indeed. Greetings. Welcome. We're going to let you introduce yourself. Today we have another, I think this is guest number 5?
I think number 5.
Guest number 5.
Privilege. And you told me the lineup beforehand, so not to let anybody down. But my name is Chris Spurlock, affectionately referred to as Joe Mel's husband. I'm married to Joe Mel Spurlock. I have a 6-month-old son, so he's my first and only child right now, and so very new to this dad space. And I know Keith and crew have been very pivotal in my life and giving me all the information, giving me all the advice, the wisdom, the knowledge, the roadmap. So definitely privileged to be here and just regurgitate everything that Keith has shared.
Awesome.
Wonderful. No, that's great, man. Thank you for coming on, Chris. Like, we really, every guest, everybody that comes here, man, we are, appreciative. However, once again, every individual who comes here, we're definitely grateful for, and we're looking forward to having a good discussion today, man. Good conversation.
This is good. Definitely needed for the men out there.
Absolutely.
Becoming fathers, current fathers, because it ain't easy.
No.
Indeed.
Chris, tell us a little bit about your son.
He is just a ball of energy. Right now, he's currently going through the teething stage. So if you see scratches on my eyelid or scratches around my lip, he just bites and scratches. And I love him. He's such a little boy now. I feel like I can wrestle with him now. He's still an infant, but got through that infant phase of the colickiness. He only wants his mom. He wants nothing to do with me.
That won't change.
Yeah,
that won't change.
Well, we're close. We're close.
That's good.
So he's definitely daddy's boy right now, and so it's just a joy to be in this current season with him and just seeing life or him experience life through his eyes, and just him to take everything in is such a surreal experience that just really was able to wrap my mind, and I don't think I could have, but I couldn't wrap my mind around experiencing that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. What is your favorite memory so far? You said he's 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm. 6 months last Wednesday.
Do you have a favorite memory so far?
He slept 9 hours for the first time straight last night.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So that I'm really excited about that.
Were you able to sleep, or were you like up?
No,
like what?
Of course not.
Okay.
Of course not. Favorite memory, definitely, I got to say when he was born, probably, you just witnessing the beauty of life, the miracle of life happen, and I know we'll probably get into it a little bit more, but just the journey that is taken to get to this point, to be able to have him. I know I was bawling my eyes out, and just such a almost surreal / spiritual moment of he's here, he's born, he's healthy, we've made it to this point, which was a very rough journey getting to there. So.
Could you tell us? So obviously you told us your name. You told us a little bit about your family. Could you give us a little more background on you, and what do you do for a living? Just a little bit of your bio, personal bio that that'll kind of help our listeners kind of understand you a little better and kind of inform where you're coming from, your perspective as a father.
So a little bit of background on me. I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Not a place you'd visit for tourism or any other reason. It's kind of just it's Oklahoma, right? A very unique part of America, and grew up there. Grew up in a very conservative household. Had a kind of unique upbringing, I would say. A lot of learning to process through a lot of it, learning to not. You see so often like dads swing to the complete opposite side. I never had everything. My child's going to have everything. I had everything. is going to be complete opposite. And so wanted to make sure I'm doing fatherhood right now as healthy of a manner as possible. And so obviously we'll get into that. I know kind of like I'm alluding to stuff in the future, but my relationship with my dad has been a little bit rough over the years. And so big believers in hard work defines who you are. Your identity as a man is dictated by how hard of a worker you are. And that's your value.
You're saying that was your dad's belief, or you're saying that's your current?
No. Yeah, sorry. Clarify. That's my dad's belief.
Okay.
Mom's belief. That was the community we were raised in.
Understand.
And so from there, moved to Columbus, Ohio when I was a teenager. Still a big Sooners fan, I would say. But now I would say if they're playing each other, I'm a Buckeyes fan through and through. Just recently graduated from my master's degree at Ohio State University in business operational excellence. Work for Bank of America, doing operational excellence work for them. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, man.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for sharing.
Awesome.
My next question, and it perfect that you mentioned that you have an MBA, because like I said, knowing a little bit about your background helped inform these questions, right? So just finished your MBA, you're a new dad. It's a lot of major life transitions, like all within a short, time window, right? Has your education influenced how you think about managing fatherhood at all for you? Or have you found that, being a dad requires like kind of just throwing out the playbook, so to speak, of, being a businessman, very strategic, very detailed in work, I'm sure. But how has your education informed, I guess, being a dad for you?
Good question. I would say as far as my education is concerned, there's the inherent value of what the education brings in my understanding of business itself. So because of that, when Judah, my son, is of age, I can communicate, this is how you navigate through the business world, if that's the world you want to pursue. This is how corporate America is set up. This is how, whatever it might be, in addition to the content itself. My undergrad's in mathematics, so I'm geeked for when he first starts his math book. Math, it's all right. So he's already got like physics for infants, quantum theory for infants. Trust and believe he had that within the first week of being born. So the standard's pretty high for him. But I would say in addition to that, education has opened up a lot more opportunities for me. In light of those opportunities, being a dad, there's such a greater level of weight and ownership and responsibility that comes with it. Not to say that I couldn't support my wife taking these risks. My wife is an adult. She's also bringing in an income, and having a child now and thinking about business risks and that have now, or business ventures that have now presented themselves because of my education. It's a weighty decision to think about, and risks are taken with a lot more thought than I think they would have been had I not been a father.
Yeah, you just mentioned your wife, and actually this is, once again, perfect, because my follow-up question has to do with your wife.
Yeah.
And what surprised you most about not just becoming a parent, but how your relationship changed with your wife? Like the dynamic of now you're both parents, but you're also still married. You still have a partner. You still have a wife. Like, how has your marriage relationship with your wife, how's that dynamic changed, if it has changed at all?
Yeah. I know as guys, oftentimes we joke around like, oh, we're the men. Like, if women didn't, I'll take that back. If men had to carry a child, population would collapse immediately.
Absolutely.
I agree with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. The moment that pregnancy test would have come out, I would have ran into a knife.
Oh, wow.
I'm done. I can't do this. There's no way that's coming out of me.
Women are tough, man.
They're tough, man.
That's it. Yeah. I've never met someone that tough in my life. To be able to, one, you start off carrying the challenges of carrying a baby for 9 months is tough enough as it is, without ever having experienced it personally. Then delivery, I mean, we don't even have to go into detail on that and how painful that is. Yeah. On top of that, the experience, the bedside manners you get from doctors, the lack of care. So it's almost a lot of times you see this insult to injury, and then your body is the primary form of nutrition for your baby. And I'm over here just I'm tired. You know, who am I going to tell? I'm not telling my wife. I'm feeling kind of tired right now. Right. So seeing her just really dig deep, and that's what parenting is. It really exposes who you are at the core and changes, and it's kind of like an onion, and it peels back layers. And so being able to see those deeper layers of my wife in her handling just these insanely challenging moments of bringing new life into the world is, I mean, I give her all the credit. I would have tapped out way before we even got to delivery.
Yeah. Like I said, when that test came, you're pregnant. Oh, I'm also dead. Pregnant and dead. Oh,
right. Yeah. No, I think that's, I mean, for me, I definitely developed a new appreciation for my wife. You know, when we had our first child and our subsequent, our son as well, just developed a deeper appreciation. But yeah, I saw a whole new side. To my wife, Camille.
It's like a level of grit.
Yeah.
Digging deeper than I know I could never dig that deep just to make it as a mom.
I love my wife, and obviously I loved her but I did, like I said, I developed a new appreciation and a new love, and even a deeper sense of respect. Just seeing her not only just go through that whole experience, you know, giving birth, but also just seeing her as a mom. And our kids are a little older. You know, we have a teenage daughter. Daughter's 14. Our son's 10 years old. And just seeing her over the years, you know, I guess kind of mature and change and develop as a mom. I think it's also been a wonderful thing to just witness, you know? So, but thanks for sharing that, man.
I was going to ask you,
Tyson here.
Did you have any fears about being a dad? Anything at all that you thought, maybe I don't know if I can do this right, or was there anything that came across your mind as a fear?
Not so much beforehand. Absolutely, every single possible fear once I became a dad. Beforehand, it was safety and security. Is our house safe enough? Is our neighborhood safe enough? Are our cars safe enough? Is the type of paint that was used in our house, is that environmentally friendly? You know, we even looked into revamping our HVAC filtration system and doing one of those UV cleaners, stuff like this stereotypical first parent stuff. We do have air cleaners in our house, I will admit. We have a few of them that clean each room, and so we didn't revamp the entire HVAC unit, but we do have that. The water filtration, you know, you name it, right? Like, is he going to be okay if he breathes the same air and drinks the same water as us?
It's so funny, the stuff we do for child one.
Right.
But then, like, when I think about what we did for the second child, you're like,
they'll be all right.
Second born right now.
You drop them, you're like, all right.
They'll live.
They can sleep on the floor.
Right.
You know, first baby, you pull out the robe and the red carpet, and
that does go away.
It does go away.
Hand me down.
You have more experience. Right? Did you have a follow-up to that one?
I did have a follow-up. Okay. What do you think right now is the easiest thing about parenting, and what's the hardest thing?
I don't know if I got an answer for that one.
That's okay.
There's enjoyment. There's definitely positives that come from parenting.
Yeah.
As far as easy, I don't know if there's anything easy about it.
That was a good trick question, because there is no easy.
Yeah. I was like, when he sleeps 9 hours through the night,
that's it.
That's my level of ease. Being able to sleep. As far as difficulties, I mean, there's just everything, right? And I think one of the biggest things, so growing up, there's generational anger that exists in my family, right? I've gone to counseling. I've processed through that. I don't really get angry very much anymore. Obviously, call Jamel. I still get angry, but nowhere near the level that I grew up with. And so because of that, I always told myself, I'm never going to invite that into my home. That's not going to be a part of our family. And so I put in a lot of work to make sure that I'm emotionally mature enough so that I'm not communicating as a, my emotions are the form of my communication. I can use my words instead. And so once I became a dad, it was incredibly tough because it takes you to a whole nother level. For me, I get overstimulated, and like by kids screaming. I didn't know that, right? Yeah. No one had really prepared me for it. And mind you, he was super colicky. He, for the first 2 or 3 months, lactose intolerant. I mean, it was screaming or sleeping. There was nowhere in between. Wow. We weren't sleeping more than 2-hour stints at a time. Family support was just a lot. The expectations were a lot different than the reality was a lot different than the expectations going in. So you add all of that up, and now my reaction, my desire is to just lose it. Just like, I'm so justified in my anger right now. And the biggest moment, or the most difficult moment of that, was seeing my mom inside of me and realizing I am this person that I have so much pain from, and I'm capable of what she's done, even though I thought it was fine, right? Wow. And so because of that, it was just very, very, I mean, I broke down several times, just like, who am I? I'm not the object of my wrath. In reality, I'm like, wow, this is me. And so I think from there, sticking to the fundamentals, staying in therapy, staying true to the fundamentals of what drive emotionally healthy behavior was so critical, to not continue and justify that when there's every reason to justify it, right? You're on short sleep, right? Yeah. So much else is going on. And so I would say that was the biggest challenge. There's obviously a lot of other challenges as being a dad, but that would have been definitely the biggest one.
Wow. Yeah. You just mentioned the fact that you saw your mom in yourself, and realizing, obviously, it sounds like that's not necessarily something that you are too fond of, that whatever, that quality or that same trait that you, I guess, that your mom has. Did that, I guess the question I want to ask is, did that help you, and this is, I guess, in relation to your relationship with your mom, your parent, did that help you have any more grace for your mom, or
absolutely
any more patience? Or does that make sense?
Yeah, I would say, I don't know if I would use the word grace. The way I describe it is, I can see paths. My great-great-grandpa walked out on his family. I can see that path, right? I can see losing, just exploding in rage at your kids. I can see that path. Do I give that grace? No, not for an adult. I think that that's what differentiates us as adults, is that you can see that, you can feel that, absolutely. The feelings are valid. However, the path, there are fundamentals you can take to not go down that path and to find healing. And of course, I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I'm not saying that I'll never struggle with that and that I've all got it all figured out right now. But those fundamentals weren't present in my upbringing. Yeah. Obviously, if my great-great-grandpa walked out and never came back, right? He didn't really have those principles either.
That's amazing that you would mention your great-great, is it third or fourth?
Second, yeah.
Okay, so your great-great-grandfather.
Yeah.
And how the impact of his perhaps lack of presence, or the lack of him parenting and being a dad, and how that has had a generational, impact.
Yeah. It's your immediate. It's your immediate culture. It's what there's the spiritual aspect to it, and then there's the cultural aspect to it. It's what you know. It's what you're accustomed to, especially with the anger stuff. That's it's natural. It's this is how we've always done it. This is how I was raised. This is how I'm going to raise my children. Right. Yeah. That's the natural way without taking any intentionality behind it.
Mm-hmm. That's and I love that word you just used. Oftentimes I think we have to 100% be intentional about breaking those generational curses, or addressing those issues. Intentionality is so key and important. Mentioning the past, I want to kind of talk about the future a little bit, as a kind of juxtaposition. When you imagine your son as a young man, as a young adult, what's one thing that you hope he'll say about how you raised him? And what kind of man do you hope to model for him? Essentially, what legacy are you, and have you given that any thought yet?
Yeah. I would say I'm my own harshest critic, so it's hard to answer that question in the lens of him seeing me as this person that gave him that legacy. I struggle with seeing that. I don't feel like I struggle with doing it all the time, right? So like for example, I'm financially speaking, right? We're already setting them up for success. Do I feel like I can pat myself on the back about that? Absolutely not. Candidly, right? There's always, in my mind, there's always something more I could be doing. And so as my harshest critic, I struggle with stopping and smelling the roses, for lack of a better word. But I would say, so I guess over the past 10 weeks being on paternity leave, I've recognized the value of being and less doing. So just my time, my presence with him will mean the whole world to him as he gets older. And so how can I position myself? How can I make those daily decisions when I'm at work of finding that work-life balance, putting him first, my family comes first before work does. So I think that would be the biggest thing.
That's good.
To leave a legacy.
I think when I think about that, I think that's so important, because that's one thing, I didn't have that with my father, was that time. And I think that even when I look back on memories of my grandmother who raised me, my mom, we didn't do the most extravagant things, but it was that time that we spent together that I remember. Time is important. That is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm currently reading a book. It's called The Good Life by Robert Waldinger. They're doing this longitudinal study about what constitutes or what makes up a good life. And it's like, I want to say through Harvard. It's been going on. The study's been going on for well over 80 years, if my memory serves me. So, like multiple different professionals have been participating in this, and they've tracked people since they were like young men and young women. Oh, wow. It's quite a remarkable undertaking, and a lot of the results that have come out of the study, they've kind of talked about in the book. And one of the things that has been most salient to me and kind of stuck with me as one of the stories from the book is about two different men. One of them, and I don't think this is too much of a spoiler, because I heard about the book on like NPR, and they kind of like alluded to this, or kind of not alluded to it. They kind of spoke about it a little bit, and it led me to go read the book. So, and hopefully, maybe someone else will take some value from this and go and read the book themselves. So they spoke about two different men. One was a guy who ended up becoming, I want to say was a teacher, perhaps. Okay. And the other was an attorney. And the attorney was phenomenally successful, in terms of, material wealth. But he ended up spending a lot of his time at work. And I think he had a couple divorces. You know, his relationships with his children weren't so great, but he did very, very well financially. But by all accounts, you know, he wasn't the happiest. You know, he didn't seem to have the most fulfilling life, even though he made tons and tons of money and he was well respected at his job and so on and so forth. So he had this great career, but you know, the things that the end of one's life, you know, that I think matter to individuals the most. It's like he kind of missed the boat versus the man who was the educator. I hope I'm quoting that right, because like I said, it's been a little while since I've last read the book. Been a few weeks, but anyway, it was kind of the opposite. You know, he didn't make a ton of money. You know, he did well enough to be able to support his family, but he had amazing relationships. Like his relationship with his wife was just extraordinary. His relationship with his children, and everyone around him. You know, he was so connected, and that he got to spend a lot of time. You know, quality. Not just the quantity, but just the quality of time. And he had really deep, meaningful relationships. And his life was very fulfilling. So I think, you know, it's not just, you know, anecdotal, but I think, but literally, you know, these things have been borne out, and social scientists have studied this same phenomena to show that, no, it really is true. Like the quality of our relationships, the time that we spend with the people we care about makes a world of difference. And I think and in the end, I think it can be argued that it leads to a much more fulfilling life. Yeah. So, yeah.
To that point, I think there's a little bit of, at least when my son was born, there's so many expectations that you have that have to die. My expectation of, it could be something simple, right? I want to be able to work out in the morning. As a new dad, right? You got to sometimes give that up. There's a give and take. Same with career, to your point. There's a little bit of a reckoning point where you have to recognize, okay, let me take a new moment now that I am a dad, because nothing can prepare you prior to that point. Now that I am a dad, how do I rebuild these expectations in a way that it is balanced? Because for me, I'm very career minded. I like my freedom. I like being able to go out to eat with my friends, hang out with my friends. Just having to give that up, you definitely kind of, you know, the Bible talks about dying to your old self. That's kind of what it feels like. And that's not forever, right? But at the beginning of it, it's definitely a expectations. Yeah, that's good. For sure.
Being a father, definitely some self-sacrifice. Being a parent, but you know, being a dad, I think is a great deal of it. Just kind of putting your own needs or a lot of times wants. But your own needs, and you know, just kind of subordinating them and saying, "Hey, I'm gonna, you know, sacrifice for."
And I think I'm learning that it. I think, like I tell people, with every level as they get older, it's still the same. You know, with two teenagers at home, you know, that don't drive. You know, I'm constantly having to drive them everywhere. Or, you know, going to these games that last way too long. You know, at the end of work, now I'm going to sit through a 3-hour volleyball game. No offense if you're listening to this audio. But like, and that's what it is. You know, you see all these parents sitting in the audience. They're just like, I just came from work. Oh God, go. You know, but you're tired. Right. You know, but it's like, and when they're little, it's one thing, and when they're middle aged, it's another thing. Even when I think you have adult children, you know, you're still having to, even, you know, I think now that we'll have one that's getting out of the house, you know, going to college, I'm like, at one point they'll both be gone, but then they won't be. You know, you're still self-sacrificing. So it's like it's never going to end. But you have to adjust. You do have to adjust.
Best lesson I've ever heard on expectations or adjusting your expectations. If you have a scale of 1 to 10 and your expectation is at a 9 and reality is at, you know, say a 7, that degree of the degree of difference between the two is going to be your level of frustration. So wider the range, the more frustration that exists. And so being able to recalibrate and understand that you might have to recalibrate, I think has allowed me to be a little bit more intentional in the moments with Judah, so that I am in the moment
Yeah.
So that I'm not like, come on, bro, hurry up. Just like,
Yeah.
hurry up and finish. Like, I'm not sitting there with him. Like, hurry up and drink your bottle, please.
Yeah.
I got to go work out. It's I'm present with him
Yeah.
while he's drinking
Doing
his
that.
bottle. You know, something
Yeah.
simple.
Like I've heard a phrase like, I don't have to do it, I get to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like this is a memory we're building together.
Yeah. It's a privilege.
It's a privilege.
And
Absolutely.
it made that so often it doesn't feel that way in the moment,
It doesn't.
but you know, kind of taking that macro, that wider view of like, hey, I get to, you know, spend time with this human being who, you know, there's going to come a time when your son is going to be almost like obsessed with you.
Yeah.
Like he's going to follow you around and, you know, do everything that you're doing, and he's going to learn everything. And it sometimes, I mean, it's amazing. And other times it kind of borders on like, oh man, you know, like, well, I got to do this. And, you know, it can feel slightly annoying, but it's really a great privilege because kids are only kids for so long, you know, and I know I'm stating the obvious here, but they're only in that state of wanting to be, you know, coming from West Indian culture, they want to be in your foot, you know, like all around, you know, just all up under your arm, so to speak, all the time. And then that kind of phase passes, and then they're going to be independent. They're gonna, you know, want to do their own thing, and it's like the what's that song, Tyson? I know you're big into the older tunes. The boy with the man on the moon, something. We'll get together soon, son.
Oh,
I can't think of the title of the song, but you know what I'm talking about.
I do. I can't think of it either. Maybe not as old as I thought.
Maybe keep singing it.
Yeah.
Tyson will pick it up soon.
I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. There's another gray hair pops out.
Look into the camera while you
Right. He'll get copyright struck on YouTube. My voice is so amazing.
Cat in the Cradle.
Cat in the Cradle. Thank you.
Hey,
Yes.
there it is. Nice job.
I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it.
No, but yeah, man, life flies by so quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Life flies by so quickly.
It does.
So,
It does.
kind of shifting here because and you know, I told you when prior to you coming on to the show that one of the issues that I wanted to raise and get your perspective, your wife being a woman of color, she's being a black woman, and your son being biracial.
Yeah.
And us living in the United States of America with all its unique history, et cetera, right? Yeah. You'll likely need to help your son, I guess, navigate, questions about his identity and even potentially face situations where he may be treated differently just because of his appearance, his ethnicity, his background, et cetera. How are you, I guess, preparing yourself, both you and maybe your wife, for conversations that you're going to have with him or potentially that you may have with him in the future? And what do you hope to teach him about, I guess, resilience and self-worth?
Good question. We are in a unique time period right now in the United States, and there's a certain level of stress that is obviously present right now. And so I think Jomel and I do our best to shield him from that. Right? I have apps on my phone that block news outlets. One of the values of our home is that our home is going to be a place of peace. And because of that, it's the one place we have control over. It's the one place I have complete control over, the environment. Because of that, there's certain individuals that, you know, aren't welcome over at our home. Friends, family members, right, that aren't welcome over at our home because of their desire to disrupt that. I'll just leave that part at that. And as far as protecting our son from as much as possible, it's just important to us to not let him be exposed to it right now, and also obviously not allow ourselves to be exposed to the more toxic side of things. And so, because it impacts us, right? It's going to impact me. He takes on my stress, and I can see sometimes that I'll be staring into space, thinking about something, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, oh man,
yeah.
Hopefully he wasn't, taking that stress on. In addition to that, I would say that this is going to sound textbook, but just making sure he knows his own value is the biggest thing. They say that trying to identify counterfeit $100 bills, you study not the counterfeits, but the real thing. Reading books to him has been a huge part of that, both in his life and in mine. And when I'm first reading some of these books to him, I don't even know if I believe that I'm unique, that I'm special. I'm like, I don't know if I believe that for my own self. I am having to relearn this, recommunicate this in my own life so that I can believe it enough to tell it to him. And so I would say for him, obviously he's going to experience a wide plethora of issues. It's just making sure that he knows he's loved. He knows he has this foundation, and he knows he has a certain level of support, and that his parents are people that he can come to and talk to about it, right? I won't be able to protect him forever from it, but building that relationship and communicating that so he believes it and knows it at his very core is important to me.
I appreciate that, Chris. Sorry, I don't want to dominate the mic, Tyson. By all means, if you have.
No, go ahead.
Okay, maybe veering more toward a little more lighthearted question.
Go for it.
We kind of deep there.
Took the air out of the room.
What's one piece of parenting advice everyone gave you that turned out to be completely wrong for your situation? And on the flip side, I always have these 2-part questions. What's something no one warned you about that you wish you'd known?
There's so much parenting advice, right? And I don't know if there's any one particular thing of do this or do that, but I do remember our doula, which that's my advice, is have a doula if you can, or some sort of advocate for your wife, because heaven knows I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know half of what's going on anyways. So, and
welcome to Fatherhood.
Right, exactly. She said that your home is your castle, run it as such. And so because of that, it was very empowering to take ownership of, yes, our home is peace. And yes, it is okay not to invite certain family members over in our home. We'll meet with them outside of our home, but
not in the home.
Not in the home. The culture of, there's so much stigma. And I'm not even on social media, so I can't even imagine what it's like for, what my wife has to see. The stigmas of, are you breastfeeding your child or are you formula? I remember going to the dog park years ago and they'd be like, is your dog adopted? And like when one of our dogs was purebred and we bought him from a breeder, and the level of devastation and shame that people would give you for that. Oh, you didn't adopt him? You didn't rescue him?
Wow.
You didn't rescue, that mindset, and there's such an air of arrogance about it. Taking ownership of that and saying, okay, this is what we're doing here, right? Yeah. In Judah's case, he was lactose intolerant, right? We just can't breastfeed him. And so this is what we're doing, and we're going to be confident in it versus, I don't know, like being very anxious about that decision. And it's true for many of the decisions that we made in our home. This isn't parenting advice, so talk to your doctor first if you want to. Before like switching on over to formula and whatnot. So don't take my word for it. But So what was remind me again what the second part of your question was? I think. Yeah,
sure. So in this part B, no, it was. Oh man, let me go back. Let me see if I can find the question. Oh yeah, I scrolled down.
Oh, it was advice.
Yeah. And on the flip side, what's something that no one warned you about that you'd wish you'd known?
They did warn me about, and I could not, like level of sleep. Right, in my mind, I'm like, I've pulled all-nighters before. Yeah. Do you know me? I pulled 2 back to back in college. Back to back. I can handle no sleep. Right. So I genuinely don't think that. I think I can warn people, and you can see, when you tell somebody that doesn't have kids that it's like a torturous level of sleep, and you can tell that they don't get it. They don't get it. Right. So I want to be conscious of that, and also conscious of the fact that there's a certain, your gut will, you have to, as a dad, trust your gut on certain things, because so many times we're put in situations where almost never the most knowledgeable person in the room, but this is where my gut is leading me. During labor and delivery, right? There was a moment where I have 2 doctors that have in the room that have been to school for who knows how many years, and my gut is saying, I need to be able to stand up for my wife in this moment, trusting my gut and saying, look, I'm not a doctor, but we're going to take a pause and we're going to approach this situation a little bit differently. The same thing for finding out that he was lactose intolerant. Again, my gut's telling me this is the path we need to be going down, and we need to be looking down it. And I want information from my doctor on this versus, it's, getting that. It's not that. And it's no discredit to the doctor, medical community or anything like that. They're very good at what they do, but sometimes you have to be able to step in and just trust your gut, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, one of the best things that I've heard, and I remember it was when my wife and I first became parents. I don't remember who gave us this piece of advice, but it's definitely been, it was definitely a sage piece of advice, and was that you know your child best. You spend so much time with your child, and that you really do have to trust that instinct, even when others may tell you. And it could be, like I said, nothing but the utmost respect for physicians and doctors, but they don't spend the most of their time with your child. Right.
Yeah.
And listen, if my child gets hit by a car, or we're in a car accident, there's some sort of emergency, absolutely, I'm taking them to the ER, let the doctors do their thing. In other situations where you're like, you know what, I really, like, in your instance, you mentioned the lactose intolerance, and like, we constantly, we give him this milk, and he just doesn't seem to, his body just doesn't seem to, he just seems to reject it every time. Something's going on. And you have to trust that instinct and be willing to speak up and not feel because you mentioned the whole dog park example, and that there's almost like this, like I don't want to say shame, like a shaming, but it's like it's like people will look at you or treat you in a certain way if or even there's that innate fear that we have of like, oh well, maybe I shouldn't say anything, or because we're afraid to kind of speak up and
I know, right? What do I have to bring to the table?
Absolutely. So I think we do have to be brave enough to say no. This is what it is, and I will even I'll even go as far as to say, as men and as fathers, we have to be the one oftentimes to say no. I'm gonna stand as a man and speak defend and cover my family, my wife, my children, because that is my role as a dad, as a husband, as a father. So so good on you, mate. That
like, for example, so
that when you were in the hospital.
Just to give a little bit more context, one of the recommendations was that Jomel should go grain free. I don't know if you've looked at your kitchen, but there's a lot of grain, and so I'm like, we're trying to breastfeed my son. Jomel's beyond stressed. How am I gonna? You're feeding two people at that point, and so she's like, how am I gonna be able to feed him on fruits and veggies? And then you can't even eat certain veggies because it produces gas. And so again, it was just a moment. I'm like, we're not doing that. It's lactose intolerant. I want to know what steps, and mind you, once you cut grains out, you won't know if that was the issue for about 3 to 4 weeks. And I'm like, we're not throwing away half the food in our house just to figure this out, right? And I'm not going to be eating all of the grains, just to make sure it doesn't. That's a bad move as in and of itself. And so,
Tyson, do you have a?
I had a question for you. Fun question. I'm a good component of self-care. And I wanted to know, what self-care as a dad or father, what is your self-care? What's your fun time to relax, and what do you do?
You say fun.
He's like, what is this word you speak of?
Yes. How do you spell it?
I love taking him on walks. He's you just get to see him take in the world outside of the home. If I have him facing me while we're going on walks in the stroller, he's just smiling, watching me while we're going on the walk. 30 minutes or so. The other benefit of that, going back to that overstimulation, is being able to have a healthy balance and being able to have the 2-in-1, where it's both a benefit and it's a joy. Has been really important for me. As soon as he was first born, right, sleep's obviously going out the window, exercise is going out the window, a normal diet of, I don't know what time of day it is, and I'm going to eat as much as Judah's eating.
Yeah.
We're all going to eat right now, right? Every 2 hours, right? We're all going to eat. Having that structure that still exists is very important. So I say that now. I'm still on paternity leave, and so until next week, we'll see. Hit me up next week and let me know. We'll see how that goes, right?
I didn't know we could have paternity leave. I'd never heard of it till I thought it was just a lady thing.
I had 16 weeks total. 16 weeks, more than Jamel.
I think.
Wow. Do they do that for
I can't even
teachers?
imagine.
Yes, but it's. I think it's like you have to either apply for it or like for me, I just ended up using some sick time.
Okay.
I think I took like maybe 2 weeks when Benjamin was born, and maybe like a week when Isabel was born.
Wow.
Just because like I just at the time
that's
for
so
our first kid,
it's,
I wish I had could have had more time.
Man,
it's so incredible to me, the culture around that, and there's definitely a broy culture. Oh, come on. You don't need that much time. I never had that much time, and look how you turned out. Look how my kids done.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
but I'm sure it's nice. That's When you think about it,
Huge.
she would need support during that time.
My wife is barely walking. And a week or two after she gives birth, and you hear stories about guys that were like, "Oh, I took the weekend off, and that's all I had." And I'm like, we got to do better.
Yeah.
What's the point?
I mean,
what's the point if we're not?
I think that's a whole nother podcast topic. That's a series right there, right? About our country and our culture and the way the lack of not just paternity leave, but universal health care and universal pre-K and et cetera. Just the way we support families, right? Yeah. So, okay, I have another question. Now, this is kind of delving back into some of the deeper things. Okay. Deeper topic. Just for the record, this is not and I got your question. I did ask Chris this before, prior to recording. Chris has shared in a previous, many previous conversations that he grew up in a church that ended up being like a cult. Mm-hmm. So the question that I have for you is, growing up, and I guess in that cult environment, I'm sure, experienced a very controlled, and I don't know if isolated childhood or an isolated experience would be the right way to phrase it. But now as a father, how are you, I guess, consciously choosing to parent differently than your parents did, in light of your experience growing up in that, in I guess that type of group? And then what freedoms and opportunities do you want to give your son that you didn't necessarily have as a kid growing up?
Yeah. To add some color to that, I was raised in the ATI program, IBLP, Bill Gothard type program, and a lot of that ultra conservative Christian culture stems a very controlling, very disciplinarian mindset. I remember learning that to discipline children, they're like animals, and the proper way to go about doing that is to break them down, and then you build them back up. And I remember being told that my childhood was like the Marine Corps, right? My mom told me she's going to break us down and then build us back up. Well, I never got to experience the build back up part.
The latter part of that. Huh?
Right. So it's very tough. And there's definitely a lot of pain from that. So I would say the progress and the journey that I've been through since that point of growing as an individual, becoming in a healthy mindset, has been incredibly critical to how I treat, how I speak to, how I communicate around my son and to him, and just overwhelmingly let him know he's loved, letting him know that he's my whole entire world has been big. He's only 6 months old, so we're not at the discipline stage. To be honest with you, so many people would ask, like, how's parenting going? And I'm like, I feel like he's just a drunk college roommate, right? He can't really handle his bottle, stumbles trying to, move around. I didn't feel, I'm like, it's just the three of us.
Yeah.
We're all homies. We're hanging out. We're having a good time. Once we started sleep training and I realized how hard it was, I'm like, oh, this is parenting. And I can see how some parents can say, this is harder for me than it is for you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was definitely a challenging moment. But I think also the other thing, just tying into my faith, is that there's only so much you can do intellectually to undo what's been done emotionally. And so seeing God as through the lens of who I know him to be intellectually and experiencing certain things growing up emotionally is very challenging to counteract that. Becoming a dad, Judah has done no wrong. He can do no wrong right now. And just seeing this agape unconditional love has given me a new lens of seeing God, and it's given me a new emotional perspective, being firsthand to being a dad, to see this is how God sees me. And there's a lot of grace that comes with that. There's a lot of like softerness that comes with that. It's not this God is a disciplinarian waiting for me to screw up, even though I know that. I know he's not that.
Yeah.
Still, it's still a struggle and a hurdle to get beyond.
Yeah. That is so powerful. I recently was having a conversation with my wife about, often have these conversations about our own childhoods and, you know, how that kind of informs our parenting and what you just referenced, how oftentimes our relationships with our own fathers or just our parents in general, but particularly if we have a dad, how that informs how we view God. And if your dad or your mom are super strict or overly stern or even abusive, it's very hard to relate to God and see him as a loving, caring, father, or seeing God as a loving, caring person or being, because if you don't experience that from your parents, which I believe it's biblical, parents are the first, I guess, image of God that children see and that they experience, right? In the sense that a child doesn't really have a notion of who God is unless they're taught who God is, right? By their parents, by your mother, by your father. And when a parent, drops the ball, or they're, figuratively speaking, or if they're so, whether, intentionally or because of whether, they were abused themselves or whatever the situation may be. And of course that doesn't excuse it. But if a parent doesn't intentionally demonstrate the qualities that God demonstrates toward us, that love, the grace, the affection, the patience, et cetera, that it's very hard to relate to God as a loving, caring parent, a loving father. So yeah, man, that's a lot to unpack.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot to unpack.
That is.
Oh, yeah. A lot of my relationship with my parents over the years, and it's taken a lot of intentional conversations with them, working through some pain points. It's crazy seeing them as grandparents now. And
yeah, like how come I didn't get any of this?
Right.
Yeah.
Who are these people? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, man. I tell you, life is like that though, right? I mean, one of the things that I try to keep in mind is, once again, which is kind of my earlier question about your mom and having more grace, based upon some mistakes that I've made as a parent. Not necessarily the same exact mistakes that my parents have made, but just seeing that, oh my goodness, like I get it. Very few people who, maybe unless you're a sociopath, are out to intentionally damage or harm your child, right?
Right.
Or to, scar them in any way, or to make mistakes, so to speak. Yeah. But we do, right? As human beings, we do. And we have to be very aware and try to do our best to be conscious of those things that we do that may have a, detrimental effect upon our kids. And then, just exercising or, being engaged in some self-reflection and taking stock of, oh my goodness, you know, like, man, today I did, you know, I yelled at my kids, or I was very short or impatient with them. And I remember just feeling like, man, when my dad was like that or my mom was like that, how much that hurt, or how much, you know, I didn't, you know, necessarily appreciate that or feel loved or whatever. And I, you know, there are times I have to go back and make it right, you know, whether it's apologizing to my child or having that conversation and saying, hey, you know, sit down with them and process it, you know. And sometimes that may be like, hey, you know what, I'm sorry. Tell me, you know, let's talk about, you know, X, Y, or Z. You had that conversation. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I've definitely had to do that. Obviously can't speak, but learning, you know, Jude, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for getting frustrated. I'm sorry for losing my temper here. It's good to, I've noticed that that's another thing, that learning to practice that now, I know it's going to be crucial as he gets older.
Yeah, because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
I always like to close with something fun, with a dad joke.
That's where I was gonna say. Are you gonna ask the question?
I always got the dad joke.
Perfect timing, man. Perfect.
Do you
timing.
have a dad joke? If not, I always got a dad joke in my back pocket.
I'm pulling my card here.
Yeah. What is the dad joke you love that you've heard, if you have one?
I have so many.
Oh,
I can't think of any of them though right now, which is so embarrassing as a dad. I'm a failure. I don't know. Yeah, thank you. I have the joke now.
You're going to think of it when you leave.
Right. Of course I will.
I got some for you. Here we go. I'm reading a book on anti-gravity. It's impossible to put down.
Hey.
Why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. Yes.
Oh,
you know, you've heard that one.
That one goes back oldest.
Does it?
I can't like claim that, you know.
That's the first time I've ever heard that one.
No judgment, by the way.
No judgment. That's the second old reference I've gotten in this podcast. One more. Let's see. Did you hear about the restaurant on the moon? Great food, no atmosphere.
That's a good one.
That's all I got, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I love that.
Well, Chris, you've been great, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
No.
Oh, he never has any dad jokes.
You know,
He's the science guy.
I've heard a few. I've definitely heard a few from
now
you.
my dad jokes are very topical, very inside baseball, you know, with like my kids, you know what I mean? Like, because they make jokes about things, then like I make jokes referencing what they've said.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah. No, but Chris, thank you.
Yes. Thank you for bringing me on and making a space for having a conversation like this, because I think authenticity is critical to set other men and other dads up for success.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. One thing that I think that both Tyson and I would hope to do, or we like to do for our several guests who've been on, we've always talked about doing a part 2. So maybe in season 2 of Two Black Dads, we'll have to have you on. And when your son, when he's a little older, and you're going through a new stage of fatherhood, of parenting. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll have a joke this time for you.
You have a joke? Okay. Yeah. Bring it with you. Have some little headphones.
Write a few. No, but all right, we're signing off. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, once again. This has been Two Black Dads with your host, Keith Luke.
And Tyson Bell.
We're out.
We're out.